This series of video clips, I'm going to document the up stop and down stop felt replacement on the lower manual. I already did the upper manual in an earlier video. Originally I was going to take both manuals out and set it on my bench and then change the felts on the lower manual while I was on my bench, but after playing around with some different options here, I've decided it's just as easy to leave the manuals in the console and just jack the upper one up like that. There's two long bolts that you remove from the top, and that loosens the manuals up. And the way the woodworking is on the upper manual, the end blocks have a little notch cut in them, and there's a piece of metal in the back on the lower that engages that, is so that you can tilt the upper manual up like you see here, and it won't slide off towards the back. So I cut a couple pieces of a couple wooden blocks and put them up under there, and I'm going to use the same wrench, this little 1/4 inch wrench. I'm going to use the same wrench to loosen up the nuts on the back of the keys on the lower. So I'm going to get started on that, and then after I change the felts, I'm going to put the two manuals, bolt the two manuals back together to each other, and then I'm still going to pull them out so that I can recap the tone wheel generator. I've already unsoldered the upper harness, which is the one going to the manuals. I didn't unsolder the harness going to the bass pedals yet, and I may not do that. I may just leave the tone wheel generator inside the console. So for now, I'm going to get started taking these keys off, and we'll see what we find under there. Okay, I've taken off all the plain keys and also the preset keys. This is on the lower manual, and there is a lovely selection of dust and bugs. Here's some pieces of felt from the organ. There's no place on the organ where this felt exists above this manual, so my theory is, if you look at that and if you look at some of the corrosion like over here, all along in through here, that's caused by mice being in there. And my theory is that the mice probably pulled these in there looking for a way to build a nest. Another thing is that, let me get my flashlight here, if you look down in there, there is a wire that probably appears white on here on the video that has been chewed by mice to where there's nothing left of the wire but the metal part. The the cotton, woven cotton insulation's been chewed completely off. Also down in there I found part of a mouse nest consisting of pieces of paper and paper matches and things like that. So the mice, once upon a time, took up residence inside this organ. There's also evidence of mouse pee corrosion on the pedal solo electronic chassis. You can see where they crawled around, the mice crawled around in there and left their message. But anyway, I'm going to clean this out, and I'm going to, like I did on the upper, I'm going to clean this thing out. This is very sluggish working, so I'll clean all that up and lube that up some, clean the keys off, and then after that we'll see about jacking this lower. Well, I'll probably lower the upper manual back down and bolt them together temporarily, and then lift the lower one up high enough that I can get that black plate off the front like I did the other one, so I can change the upstop felt. Getting ready to move this front plate off the lower manual. I have the upper and lower manuals bolted together with this bolt right here, one on each side, and that holds them together. And so then I just jacked it up, and you can see I put got it propped up with a piece of wood scrap wood I jammed under there, and jammed one under that end too. And I'm going to be taking, well, I've got most of them out now already. Here's another screw right here that has to come out. And then I'll be taking that front fascia plate off and cleaning it up and putting a new upstop felt on it. Alrighty, I got this preset bar cleaned up and lubed up, and I still need to clean off the keys, and those preset keys have a piece of spring steel on them. I'll put some grease on them too. And I also put on the new downstop felt. There it is there. The original was tied down with some string actually. So you snip off the string and comes right up, and then I just wiped the metal down with some acetone just to make sure there wasn't any grease on it. And the new one from Tone Wheel General is Peel and Stick. Still working on the lower manual. When I took this lower manual apart, over here in this area, down in one of these bins here, I found a small piece of wire, blued steel wire that was real stiff, like spring steel. And so I took it out and threw it away, and then it dawned on me that I found the same piece of spring steel wire laying around loose in the upper manual. So I started looking at this thing, and here's what's going on. This is the bar that's used to hold the preset keys down. They latch underneath this thing. Well, on this end there's a flat spring right there. Okay. What it turns out that once upon a time there was a spring over here too. This rod has a groove cut into it, and if you look real carefully right here, I noticed there was two brass rivets. And you might not be able to see it in the video, but if you look at this real close, there's where the spring steel wire went. It broke off right here, but it's wrapped around this. It's wrapped around this post, and then it's held captive under this one. So there was a piece of spring steel wire that came up and went under here, and it rode in this groove. And that provided some additional spring action when this thing was new. And that thing broke off on this one, and it also broke off on the upper one. So that must be a common piece that breaks. But anyway, fortunately for all of us, this wide flat spring on this left side is enough to get it to return even down here on this end. So it probably had a little bit snappier return action when this spring was actually there. But it's broken, and I don't see any point in trying to replace it with some sort of a substitute because this thing seems to be working just fine. So I'm just going to forget about it. But I just thought I'd point that out. Alrighty, there's the lower manual with all the keys put back on. No problems there. I cleaned them off with Simple Green. I didn't buff them or anything like that, but I did get some candle wax off of a few of them. Looked like somewhere along the line, somebody spilled some candle wax down in the keyboard. So the next step for me is going to be lower that upper manual back down and bolt the two together with the two long bolts, and then I'm going to jack them both up so that I can expose this front plate again. And I'm in the process of sanding down and painting that black fascia plate that goes on there, and I've got some sheet metal screws so I can just screw it in from the front like the newer ones are held in place. So we'll see what it looks like after I get that done. Okay, I got the upstop felt put on this black fascia piece. I got that installed. It's screwed on from the front using some number 8 by 1/2 inch sheet metal screws with a black oxide finish. Here's what they look like on the upper manual right there. I used the same ones on the lower one. And this wooden piece here on the back side of here is routed out to in the middle, which gives you enough space for the screw heads. So that goes together just fine. One thing I wanted to point out, when you've got these metal pieces on here, if you jack up the manuals, either one of them or both of them, there's a danger that when this thing arcs up like this, it's going to scratch the inside of your cabinet. So you want to put something there. This cabinet's pretty beat up anyway, so it's not super critical, but you know, why mess it up even more? This is just a piece of a manila file folder that I cut and got it taped down with some painter's tape. I got one on the other side too. So this looks good now. The action's real quiet on both of them, and this mechanism was real sluggish, but now I've got it working good. In an earlier video I showed how to test all the contacts on the upper manuals, but I can't use that procedure for the lower manual because since I did the video on the upper, I have unsoldered the manual wiring harness from the tone wheel generator. So there's no easy way to test the contacts now. You could test them out individually by finding the right wire in the wiring harness, but that would be real tedious. I spot checked a few of them and things seem to be okay. So I'm pretty much done with the manuals now. I'm happy with the way that turned out. It improved the action a lot. And so the next thing is, as soon as I can get one of my strong brothers over here to help me, we're going to pull the manuals. I have them bolted together again using these long screws right here. There's one over here on this end too, right there. So they're bolted together. So as soon as I can get one of my brothers over here, we're going to lift that thing out and set it aside, and then I'm going to start recapping the tone wheel generator.